What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing what if. What if Naruto gets pregnant? Chunin exam. If you enjoy this what if, then please like, share, and do comment.
The room was quiet in a way Sakura hated. Moonlight spilled through the window, tracing pale lines across her bedroom floor, but it did nothing to warm the heaviness pressing against her chest. She sat curled on her bed, arms wrapped around her legs, forehead resting against her knees. 6 months had passed, yet the memory still refused to loosen its grip. I hope you find happiness. Those words lingered like a phantom touch, gentle and devastating all at once. She told herself she was being foolish. Sasuke was back, alive, free, at least as free as the village would allow. Against protests, investigations, and the unspoken fear that clung to his name, he had been given another chance. Sakura had stood beside him through every evaluation, every silent stare from villagers who hadn't forgotten his betrayal. She should have felt complete. Instead, something inside her felt hollow. Life had resumed its rhythm after Sasuke's return, but it was a strained imitation of the past. Training fields echoed with familiar sounds, missions resumed, routines returned, but the balance was off. Like a chord played with one string missing, Naruto had been the one to tip the scales. No one knew what had been said behind closed doors in the Hokage's office. Sakura only remembered waiting outside, heart racing, nails digging into her palms as voices rose and fell behind the heavy wooden door. When Naruto finally stepped out, grinning like he'd just won a fight he wasn't supposed to survive, she'd nearly collapsed from relief. He never told her what it cost. Not long after, the announcement came, formal, cold, and final. Naruto Uzumaki, assigned as Konoha's long-term envoy to Sunagakure. Permanent relocation. She remembered how the words had felt unreal, like a genjutsu that refused to break. Naruto had accepted it with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, brushing off questions with his usual bravado. "Someone's gotta do it," he'd said. "Might as well be me." But Sakura had seen it. The way his laughter faded faster than usual. The way he lingered longer with people, as if memorizing them. The way he avoided her gaze when the topic came up. That final week passed like a slow execution. Naruto moved through his world deliberately, sharing meals, sparring matches, quiet conversations. Each day was given to someone else, as if he were distributing pieces of himself before leaving them behind. When his departure finally arrived, he tried to slip away unnoticed. He would have succeeded, too, if Sakura hadn't chased him to the gates with her heart pounding loud enough to drown out her thoughts. She remembered standing there, breathless, anger and panic tangled together. Remembered demanding answers she already knew he wouldn't give. Remembered the way his voice softened when he spoke to her, as if he were afraid she might break. And then, that moment. Not dramatic, not loud, just Naruto, standing in front of her beneath the morning sky, looking at her like she was something precious he wasn't allowed to keep. His touch had been brief, warm, familiar, and his smile had been full of something she hadn't recognized until it was too late. Resignation. Now, 6 months later, Sakura pressed her face into her knees, fingers tightening in the fabric of her pajamas. She was dating Sasuke. Officially. Publicly. Comfortably. Yet comfort wasn't joy. A knock broke the silence. Before Sakura could respond, the door slid open, revealing a familiar blonde head poking inside. "Wow," Ino said, arms crossed. "Brooding. Again. You're really committing to this mysterious vibe, huh?" "Go away," Sakura muttered without looking up. Instead, the bed dipped beside her. Ino studied her quietly for a moment, sharper eyes softening. "Okay, no jokes. What's wrong?" Sakura hesitated, words tangled in her throat, refusing to take shape. "Nothing's wrong," she lied weakly. "Everything's fine," Ino hummed, unimpressed. "You know, when you say that, it makes it very obvious that everything is not fine." Silence stretched. Then, carefully, Ino spoke again. "Does it feel like something's missing?" Sakura's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Ino smirked faintly. "I mean exactly what you think I mean." Sakura's head snapped up. "Don't start. I didn't even say his name. You didn't have to." That earned her a knowing look. Ino leaned back on her hands. "You get irritated when anyone uses that nickname," she said casually. "Except him." "That's not." Sakura stopped, frustration flaring. "That was different, was it?" Sakura looked away, jaw tightening. She remembered Sasuke saying it once, tentatively, awkwardly. The immediate discomfort. The sharp rejection that had followed without her meaning to. It hadn't felt right. Ino continued gently, you care about Sasuke. I can see that, but caring isn't the same as feeling alive. Sakura swallowed. I've watched you, Ino said. Since Naruto left. You smile, you function, you do everything right, but it's like you're holding yourself back. Like you're afraid to want too much. And what do you know about that? Sakura challenged. Ino's expression shifted, softer, warmer. Enough. A small smile curved her lips. I'm in love, Sakura. Sakura blinked. You are? Ino nodded, cheeks coloring slightly. Yeah, and it's terrifying, and amazing, and stupid, but it feels right. She met Sakura's eyes. That's how you know. The words sank deep, echoing through Sakura's chest like a bell struck too hard. Ino stood, stretching. Just think about it. Don't ignore it forever. She paused at the door. Oh, and when you figure it out? A grin flashed across her face. You might want to act fast. Why? Sakura asked quietly. Ino glanced back over her shoulder. Because Sanagakure just sent an official request. Sakura's heart skipped. They're sending Naruto back to Konoha, Ino finished. For negotiations. The door slid shut. Sakura remained frozen on the bed, pulse roaring in her ears as a single thought shattered the fragile calm she'd built around herself. If he comes back, she didn't know whether she was afraid of seeing Naruto again, or of what she might finally admit if she did. That won't be necessary, Ino said quickly, waving a hand. Because, well, you see. The pause was too deliberate. Sakura narrowed her eyes, gears turning rapidly. Wait, Shikamaru's engaged to Temari, and I'm fairly certain she'd end his existence if he even thought about cheating. So that means, realization slammed into her like a dropped anvil. Her eyes widened. No way. Ino, don't tell me. Ino's face flushed a deep crimson. Choji? Sakura nearly shouted. You're in love with Choji? Ino lunged forward, clamping a hand over Sakura's mouth. Lower your voice before the entire building hears you. Sakura pried the hand away, staring in disbelief. Choji Akamichi. That Choji? Yes, Ino said firmly, straightening her posture. And before you say anything stupid, yes, I'm serious. And yes, I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. Sakura blinked, then slowly sat back on the bed. Okay, I did not see that coming. Ino snorted. Coming from the girl who chased Sasuke for half her life, that's rich. Hey, Ino smirked but her expression softened. Look, I know how it sounds. But Choji treats me like I matter. Not like an accessory. Not like a tool. He listens. He supports me. And when things get rough, he's there. Always. She smiled, genuine and warm. That kind of thing changes how you see everything. Sakura studied her friend carefully. This wasn't infatuation. This wasn't a crush. This was real. Since when can Choji cook? Sakura asked weakly. Ino laughed. Since always. And he's terrifyingly good at it. Sakura shook her head, overwhelmed. So, how long? About a year. A year? Sakura sputtered. And you didn't tell me? Ino crossed her arms. Because people talk. And I wasn't about to let anyone reduce him to gossip or jokes. Not him. Sakura sighed, then smiled faintly. Okay, that actually makes sense. Ino's gaze sharpened. Which brings me to you. Sakura stiffened. Me? Yes, you. Ino leaned forward. Tell me something. When Sasuke kisses you, do you feel it? Feel what? That spark. That moment where the world fades out and nothing else matters. Sakura opened her mouth, then closed it. And when he holds you, Ino continued quietly, do you feel safe, or just familiar? The silence answered for her. Ino nodded. That's what I thought. So you're saying Sasuke isn't right for me? Sakura asked softly. I'm saying, Ino replied carefully, that ever since Naruto left, you've been half of yourself. Sakura's chest tightened. You don't laugh the same. You don't fight the same. You don't live the same, Ino said. You didn't notice because Naruto filled the gaps without you realizing it. Images flooded Sakura's mind, training sessions filled with laughter, loud encouragement, unwavering belief. Naruto cheering her victories like they were his own. Naruto standing in front of her without hesitation. Naruto smiling at her like she was the most important thing in the world. Best friends, teammates, partners. And he loved me, she thought suddenly. Not quietly, not carefully, just completely. Hey, Ino? Sakura asked, voice unsteady. Yeah? Do you think Naruto would still want me? Ino stared at her for a second, then burst out laughing. Sakura, we are talking about Naruto Uzumaki. The man would cross continents barefoot if you asked. Sakura let out a breathy laugh, relief and fear tangling together. So why are you still sitting here? Ino demanded. Go after him. I can't just. Yes, you can, Ino cut in. You're a medical nin, a war hero, and Tsunade's apprentice. You don't ask for fate, you chase it. Sakura stood abruptly, resolve igniting in her eyes. You're right, she said. I'm done waiting. Ino grinned. That's the Sakura I know. The Hokage tower loomed above her as Sakura climbed the final steps, heart racing. Shizune looked up from her desk and smiled. Good evening, Sakura. I need to speak with Lady Tsunade, Sakura said without hesitation. Shizune chuckled. Go on in. You might actually save her from drowning in paperwork. Inside, Tsunade barely looked up before groaning. If this is about mission rotations, I swear. She stopped when she saw Sakura's expression. Well, Tsunade said slowly, sitting back. This should be interesting. Sakura bowed deeply. Hokage-sama, I request permission to travel to Sanagakure. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. And why would you need to do that? Sakura straightened, eyes burning with conviction. Because I need to bring back something I lost. Tsunade's lips curved knowingly. Something, or someone? Sakura didn't look away. Naruto Uzumaki belongs in Konoha. And, I need him to be myself. For a long moment, Tsunade stared at her. Then she laughed, loud, full, and unapologetic. Oh, kid, Tsunade said, wiping a tear from her eye. You really have no idea what kind of storm you're about to unleash. Her expression sharpened. And I think Naruto's not the only one who's been hiding things. Very well, Sakura, Tsunade said at last, folding her hands together. You may go, on one condition. Sakura straightened instinctively. Tsunade's grin turned sharp, predatory in a way only the fifth Hokage could manage. You bring him back, and I don't care how you do it. Sakura's lips curved into a grin just as fierce. Understood. If he refuses, I'll knock him unconscious and drag him back myself. Tsunade laughed loudly, slapping her desk. That's my apprentice. Now get out of my office and retrieve that idiot before I change my mind. Hi, Sakura replied, already turning on her heel. 3 days later, the desert sun loomed high as Sakura Haruno passed beneath the gates of Sanagakure. The heat was different from Konoha's, dry, relentless, but sharp enough to keep her alert. 2 sand shinobi stopped her at the entrance, professionalism etched into their posture. After checking her credentials and confirming her identity, they allowed her through without trouble. Naruto Uzumaki lived here now. The thought still felt unreal. Rather than wandering blindly, Sakura chose efficiency. The case cage would know exactly where Naruto was. Following instinct and village logic, she headed toward the tallest structure at the center of the village. As she moved through the streets, she felt eyes on her. She ignored most of them. Years of training, battles, and survival had reshaped her, not just physically but in presence. She walked with confidence now, with purpose. The girl who once trailed behind her teammates had long since vanished. She didn't miss the faint irony that Naruto used to notice those changes long before anyone else. Focus, she scolded herself. Near the central tower, a familiar voice called out. Sakura? She turned. Tamari. The Sand Kunoichi studied her with open curiosity, arms crossed, sharp eyes assessing. This is unexpected. Is something wrong in Konoha? No, Sakura replied quickly. I'm here to see Naruto. Tamari's lips twitched. Just Naruto? Sakura didn't rise to the bait. Yes. Tamari nodded slowly, clearly unconvinced, but she gave directions anyway. He's out on a mission. Should be back tomorrow. Disappointment flickered briefly, but Sakura masked it. Thank you. Naruto's apartment sat in a quieter part of the village. Too quiet. The door lock offered little resistance. Sakura slipped inside and froze, not because of guilt, but surprise. It was clean, orderly. The apartment was modest, but everything had its place. No chaos, no clutter, no half-eaten food or discarded clothes. It didn't match the image Naruto projected to the world at all. This is very you, she murmured softly. She wandered through the rooms, stopping when she reached the bedroom. A small desk stood near the window. On it rested a thick, worn book. Sakura hesitated. Her instincts screamed at her to turn back. Instead, she sat down. The pages were filled with familiar handwriting. Her breath caught. This is a journal. She shut it immediately. No, I can't. Her foot brushed against something beneath the desk. She leaned down. More books, one after another, numbered, carefully stored. Her heart sank. He's been writing since he was a child. Her hands trembled. This is wrong, she thought. And yet, how else will I understand him? Slowly, she opened the first volume. The early entries weren't childish ramblings. They were questions. Why does everyone hate me? What did I do wrong? Why won't anyone talk to me? The pages grew heavier with each turn. Loneliness, confusion, fear. She read about closed doors, about bruises, about hunger, about being treated like something dangerous instead of human. Her vision blurred. So this is why Ichiraku hadn't just been a favorite, it had been a refuge. Sakura pressed a hand to her mouth as guilt settled deep in her chest. Hours passed unnoticed. She read about Team 7, about missions, about laughter and rivalry and quiet hope, about Naruto deliberately playing the fool so she wouldn't notice her own pain, about how he absorbed rejection so she wouldn't have to. Tears slid down her cheeks. Why didn't I see it? Then she reached the entries about the valley. The fight, the loss. Naruto's words were raw, stripped of bravado, stripped of strength. I promised her, I can't fail her, even if it destroys me. Later entries were worse. The bridge, the transformation, her injury. I hurt her. Sakura felt sick. I don't deserve to be near her. Her hands shook violently as tears finally spilled freely. You idiot, she whispered, voice breaking. You carried all of this alone. She had never told him, never reassured him, never healed the wound she hadn't even realized she caused. The sun dipped low outside the window. That was when she felt it. A presence, a familiar chakra signature, warm, powerful, unmistakable. Sakura stiffened. The front door opened, and Naruto Uzumaki stepped inside. Sakura reached the final pages of the 8th journal just as dawn's pale light began creeping through the window. Her hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from what she had just read. This entry was different. It wasn't about loneliness. It wasn't about missions. It wasn't even about Sasuke. It was about her. Her breath caught as she read Naruto's account of the day he had asked Tsunade to dismiss her from the office. The day he had emerged smiling, carrying good news like a gift wrapped in lies. Sakura remembered that moment vividly. His grin, his confidence, the way he told her everything was going to be okay. What she hadn't known was the cost. Naruto had written about standing alone before the 5th Hokage, laying out his offer with brutal clarity. If the village demanded a sacrifice, it didn't have to be Sasuke. They could take him instead. The disgraced Uchiha, valuable, redeemable. The Jinchuriki, feared, tolerated at best. Naruto had made the choice easy for them. Sakura's chest tightened painfully as she read Tsunade's question, written in careful detail. Is this about Sasuke, or Sakura? Naruto's answer was simple, devastating. He had known who she wanted. And he had stepped aside anyway. Sakura couldn't breathe. She folded forward, hands clutching her hair as sobs tore from her chest, raw and unrestrained. The room felt too small, too silent, as guilt crashed down on her like a landslide. All this time, she whispered brokenly. You never stopped protecting me. She had chased someone who barely looked back, while the one who loved her had quietly given up everything. Tears blurred her vision as she pressed her forehead to the desk. I swear, she said shakily, voice trembling with resolve, I will never hurt you again. I won't let you carry everything alone anymore. She straightened slowly, wiping her eyes. The truth rose from her heart without resistance. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. The words didn't frighten her. They felt right. Sunlight flared brighter through the window, forcing her to blink. She glanced at the clock and froze. Morning. She had read through the night. Naruto would be returning later today. Her pulse quickened, not with fear, but anticipation. She stood, stretching stiff limbs, then crossed the room and collapsed gently onto his bed. The scent of him lingered faintly, warm, familiar. She closed her eyes, letting herself rest at last. He doesn't need grand speeches, she thought drowsily. He just needs honesty. And this time, she would give him everything. That evening, Naruto yawned loudly as the gates of Sunagakure came into view. Man, that mission was a joke, he groaned. All that build-up for a bunch of drunk idiots. Gaara walked beside him, calm as ever. The request came from a neighboring lord. Declining was not an option. I know, Naruto sighed. Still boring. They hadn't gone far when a familiar voice cut in sharply. Welcome back. Temari approached with crossed arms and a knowing look. Naruto grinned instantly. Hey, missed me? She rolled her eyes. Unfortunately. Gaara inclined his head. Everything resolved without issue. Good, Temari replied, then shifted her gaze to Naruto. A slow smirk appeared. By the way, you have a guest. Naruto blinked. A guest? Your favorite pink-haired leaf Kunoichi, Temari said casually. She arrived last night. Naruto stopped dead. Sakura? His voice cracked just slightly. Temari nodded. She's at your place. Alone. Naruto's heart slammed against his ribs. She didn't bring. No, Temari cut in, watching him carefully. Just her. Color flooded Naruto's face as his mind raced, hope and confusion tangling violently in his chest. Temari smiled faintly. Whatever Sakura Haruno had come here to do. Naruto Uzumaki was about to have his world turned upside down. Well, I guess I better not keep her waiting any longer, Naruto said softly. I'll see you both later. Before either sibling could respond, he was already moving, springing onto the rooftops, blonde hair flashing beneath the fading sun as he headed for home. Gaara followed his retreating figure with calm eyes, then turned to Temari. Temari, he said plainly, what are you doing? She crossed her arms, watching the horizon where Naruto had disappeared. Trusting my instincts. Sakura wasn't wearing the face of someone who missed a friend. That was the look of someone who'd realized too late who they couldn't live without. Gaara tilted his head slightly. The same expression you have when Shikamaru is away. Temari stiffened, then flushed. Hey, I don't. She stopped when she noticed the faintest curve of amusement on her brother's lips. Very funny, she muttered. Don't get used to it. Sakura felt it before she heard it. Naruto's chakra, warm, familiar, unmistakable, was drawing closer. Her heart pounded violently as she stood in the quiet apartment, every sense heightened. Temari had said evening. Sakura had decided she would wait as long as it took. This is it, she told herself. No more hesitation. No more fear. For a fleeting moment, doubt tried to surface. Inner Sakura shut it down instantly. Enough waiting. Enough regret. If you let him slip away again, you'll never forgive yourself. The thought of Naruto choosing someone else, of smiling that soft smile at another woman, sealed her resolve completely. The door clicked open. Sakura nearly jumped. Naruto stepped inside, eyes already scanning the room, until he spotted the note on the table. He recognized her handwriting immediately. His fingers trembled as he unfolded it and read. With every line, his breath grew shallower. By the time he reached the end, his heart was racing so hard it hurt. Sakura, he whispered. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding. She had come here, for him. Naruto didn't rush. He didn't run. He moved down the hallway slowly, deliberately, as though afraid the moment might shatter if he moved too fast. When he opened the bedroom door, the world stopped. The room was dim, lit softly by candlelight. The curtains were drawn, sealing them away from everything else. And there, on his bed, was Sakura. Not the girl he'd chased. Not the teammate he'd protected. But the woman who looked at him like he was her entire world. Hey, she said quietly. You made it. Naruto swallowed hard. Sakura, what is this? She stood, the sheet wrapped loosely around her as she crossed the room. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shone with emotion. Sasuke and I are done, she said simply. Not because of anger, not because of guilt, but because my heart was never truly there. She stopped in front of him. When you left, Sakura continued, I realized I'd lost more than a teammate. I lost the person who believed in me more than anyone else. The one who made me stronger without even trying. Her voice trembled now. I've hurt you. I ignored you. I took everything you gave me and never once stopped to ask what it cost you. She lifted her gaze to meet his. I love you, Naruto. Not because you chased me. Not because you saved me. But because you are you. And if you can forgive me, I want to spend my life proving I deserve you. Silence stretched between them. Naruto stared at her, really stared. Then, slowly, he stepped forward. He didn't touch her at first. Instead, he reached up and gently cupped her face, thumbs brushing away the tears she hadn't realized were falling. Sakura, he said quietly, voice thick with emotion, I never stop loving you. Her breath hitched. But this, he continued, this has to be because you choose me. Not because you feel guilty. Not because you're afraid of losing me. She nodded immediately. I choose you. Naruto smiled, soft, real, unguarded. Then he pulled her into his arms. Sakura buried her face against his chest, shaking as relief and emotion crashed through her all at once. Naruto held her like he was afraid she might vanish, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other firm at her waist. Outside, the desert night deepened. Inside, two hearts finally found their way home. And somewhere far away, fate quietly closed one chapter and began another. Naruto took a single step forward, then stopped. Instead of reaching for her the way Sakura feared he might refuse to, he gently slipped his jacket from his shoulders and draped it around her, covering her with deliberate care. The warmth settled over her skin, grounding and protective all at once. For a heartbeat, panic flared. He doesn't want me, the thought screamed, until Naruto's fingers lifted her chin, guiding her eyes back to his. Sakura-chan, he said softly, voice steady and sincere, don't ask for forgiveness when there's nothing to forgive. You never owed me anything. Not your time, not your heart, and certainly not your body. Her breath hitched. I've loved you, he continued, eyes unwavering, without conditions. I don't need you to offer yourself to make me want you. I always did. No, she whispered, shaking her head. You don't understand. She stepped closer, closing the space between them until his warmth surrounded her. I'm not trying to bargain. I'm choosing, Sakura said firmly. I want you to see me, truly see me. And I want you to be the only one who ever does. Naruto's expression changed then, something fierce and tender crossing his face at once. He leaned in, and when their lips met, the kiss was gentle at first, hesitant, reverent, before deepening into something undeniable. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It was real. Sakura's hands found his shoulders as the world fell away, heart soaring with a joy so sharp it nearly hurt. This, she breathed, resting her forehead against his, this is what I wanted. Naruto smiled, brushing his nose against hers. So did I. He held her close, voice low but certain. Know this, Sakura, when I give my heart, I give it fully. I protect what I cherish. I don't let go easily. She met his gaze without fear. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. They laughed softly together, tension melting into warmth. Naruto guided her toward the bed, not with urgency, but with care, laying her down as though the moment itself was precious. They disappeared beneath the covers, not in haste, but in quiet understanding. The night passed wrapped in closeness, whispered promises, and a sense of belonging neither of them had ever truly known before. Morning light filtered in gently. Sakura stirred first, warmth pressed against her back, strong arms secure around her. She shifted, turning to face Naruto, and found him already awake, watching her with an unguarded smile. Morning, he murmured. She smiled back, contentment settling deep in her chest. Morning. As she rested her head against him, her eyes caught on something faint along his collarbone, a subtle mark, glowing softly before fading. Naruto? He followed her gaze, then chuckled quietly. Guess that's new. She glanced down, and froze. A matching symbol shimmered briefly over her own heart before disappearing. What is that? She asked, puzzled. He shrugged lightly. Something the Nine Tails once mentioned. Bonds formed through choice and trust can leave traces. Guess we'll learn together. Naruto pulled her closer, protective and gentle. Sakura relaxed against him, a smile tugging at her lips. Whatever lay ahead, villages, battles, expectations, they would face it side by side. He kissed her forehead, lingering. I love you, he said simply. She closed her eyes, heart full. I know. And I love you too. Outside, the desert sun climbed higher. Inside, two souls rested, no longer searching. Sakura woke to warmth, not just the desert sun filtering through the curtains, but the steady presence behind her. Arms secure around her waist, breath soft against the back of her neck. Gentle kisses traced along her skin, unhurried, affectionate. She smiled sleepily, leaning back into him, earning a low, amused chuckle. Naruto shifted closer, resting his forehead against her hair. There was no rush in him this morning, no urgency, no restlessness. Just comfort, just them. She turned her head enough to see his eyes, clear blue, bright with contentment, and that familiar, foxish grin tugged at his lips. Good morning, he murmured. Sakura's smile widened. That's one way to wake someone up. They lingered like that, sharing warmth and quiet laughter, The kind that came easily when there was nothing left to hide. Eventually, reality nudged its way back in, training schedules, responsibilities, the world waiting just beyond the walls. Naruto groaned dramatically when Sakura finally shifted to sit up. Do we really have to move? Yes, she said, though she sounded far less convinced than she meant to. You train with Gaara every morning. And I have work at the hospital. He sighed, burying his face briefly against her shoulder before relenting. Fine, but I'm blaming you for this cruelty. She laughed, standing and stretching before heading toward the bathroom. Halfway there, she paused, glancing back over her shoulder with a playful look that immediately caught his attention. You coming? She asked innocently. Naruto stared for a second too long, then scrambled out of bed. You're evil, he accused fondly. They disappeared into the bathroom together, laughter echoing off the tiles as the door slid shut behind them. An hour later, Naruto arrived at the training grounds in noticeably high spirits. Gaara was already waiting, calm and composed as ever. Temari joined them moments later, arms crossed, eyes immediately narrowing at Naruto's expression. All right, she said dryly, what's with the ridiculous smile? Naruto blinked. I can't smile now? That's not a smile, Temari snorted. That's a problem. He didn't bother denying it. Gaara inclined his head. Shall we begin? Naruto nodded, hands forming quick seals. A subtle pulse of chakra spread outward, settling over the area like a veil. Temari stiffened. What was that? A privacy barrier, Naruto explained. Keeps prying eyes out. Learned it from my old teacher. Her eyebrows rose. Handy. That became immediately apparent as the two shinobi launched at each other. Sand and wind collided, chakra flaring as Gaara's control met Naruto's raw power. The fight flowed fast and fluid, no wasted movement, no hesitation. Taijutsu followed ninjutsu, then strategy layered over instinct. Temari watched closely, eyes sharp, impressed despite herself. He's even stronger than before, she realized. Hours passed before they finally disengaged, both breathing hard. Naruto, despite the intensity, looked far less exhausted than he should have. Gaara nodded once. You continue to surpass expectations. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. You're faster too. Temari smirked. And you're still impossible. The barrier dropped, and Naruto's stomach growled loudly enough to end the moment. Food? He suggested. Temari laughed. Some things really never change. Later, the three of them sat at a familiar cafe off the main street. The staff barely needed to ask, plates arrived quickly, drinks set down without fuss. Naruto dug in happily, energy fully restored. Between bites, his thoughts drifted, not to training, not to missions, but to a certain pink-haired medic working across the village. For the first time in his life, Naruto Uzumaki wasn't chasing a dream alone. And somewhere in Sanagakure's hospital, Sakura Haruno paused mid-task, smiling for no reason at all, her heart light, her future suddenly clear. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Guess who? Soft hands slipped over Naruto's eyes, and before he could pretend to be surprised, a familiar scent curled around him. He laughed quietly, already reaching back. Let me think, he said playfully. Someone who smells like antiseptic, desert wind, and cherry blossoms. The hands lifted. Sakura leaned into his view, smiling. Hi, he said, simple and warm, and pulled her gently down onto his lap. She settled sideways, careful not to sit too close, wrinkling her nose as she ran her fingers through his damp hair. You're gross, sticky, and sweaty. I trained really hard today, Naruto whispered dramatically. Thought you liked me like this. She leaned in, lips close to his ear. Only when I'm the reason, she murmured, then kissed him quickly. Temari cleared her throat loudly. You two do realize you're not alone, right? Naruto blinked, finally noticing the table, the food, and the two amused sand siblings watching them. Sakura slipped off his lap, laughing softly, and took the seat beside him. Naruto immediately pushed half his food toward her without thinking. Gaara observed this quietly. Temari smirked. So, Sakura said casually, how was training? Naruto swallowed a mouthful. Awesome. Gaara's way faster than before. We did not spar at full capacity, Gaara corrected evenly. Naruto waved it off. Yeah, details. Gaara didn't argue, but his eyes lingered on Naruto thoughtfully. There were things about Naruto's strength that even Sakura didn't yet know. When lunch finished, Naruto glanced at Sakura, expression shifting, serious now. Hey, after this, can we go home? There's something I need to show you. She didn't joke this time. She squeezed his hand. Of course. Back at the apartment, Sakura sat at the table, legs tucked beneath her, watching Naruto disappear into the bedroom. When he returned, he carried two things: a sealed scroll and a small wooden box. He set them down carefully between them. Before he could speak, Sakura inhaled sharply. Naruto, there are things I need to tell you too. He looked at her, attentive. Go ahead. She folded her hands together. Before I left Konoha, I decided I was coming here for you. Not just to bring you back, but because I chose you. Naruto's expression softened, but he stayed silent. I was still officially with Sasuke, she continued. So I ended it, properly, face to face. Naruto nodded slowly. That sounds like you. Her gaze dropped. I almost wish I hadn't. He frowned slightly. What happened? Sakura closed her eyes and began. Sasuke had arrived just as she was finishing packing. The timing felt cruel. She'd let him inside, heart racing, and forced herself to speak before she lost her nerve. I can't be with you anymore. Sasuke's reaction had been sharp, defensive. He hadn't yelled, but the coldness in his voice had cut deeper. You seem satisfied, he'd said. This is sudden. I was content, Sakura replied then. But I wasn't happy. She'd tried to explain, about growth, about understanding the difference between infatuation and love. About realizing that clinging to who she was at 11 wasn't fair to either of them. Sasuke hadn't listened, and when Naruto's name surfaced, even unspoken, something ugly had flashed in his eyes. That idiot? He'd scoffed. You're telling me you threw this away for him? Sakura's voice trembled remembering it. He mocked you. He mocked Naruto. Dismissed everything Naruto sacrificed. And then, her fists clenched. Then he talked about the valley. Like it meant nothing. Like Naruto's life was disposable. Naruto's jaw tightened. I told him it mattered to me, Sakura said quietly. And he said it didn't. Silence filled the apartment. Naruto finally spoke, voice low but steady. You didn't do anything wrong. She looked up, eyes shining. I know, but it still hurts. Because I finally saw him clearly, and I realized how blind I'd been before. Naruto reached across the table and took her hands. You see now. That's what matters. She squeezed his fingers, then glanced at the scroll in the box. So, what did you want to show me? Naruto exhaled slowly. These are things I was going to take back to Konoha someday, he said. But now, I think it's time you saw them. He pushed the scroll toward her. And whatever Sakura was about to learn next. She knew it would change everything. What was that? Sakura asked, voice barely above a whisper. The fox's massive head dipped slightly, 9 tails swaying behind him with slow, deliberate grace. He asked me, the Kurama said calmly, why I was angry. Sakura blinked. Naruto stared at the fox, expression unreadable but steady. No one had ever asked me that before, Kurama continued. They screamed. They feared. They tried to bind me, use me, erase me. But the kid, his eyes slid toward Naruto, asked why. The fox's voice lost its edge, becoming older, heavier. He didn't demand my power. He didn't threaten me. He didn't curse me for his pain. He asked what had been done to me. Sakura slowly sank back into her chair, heart pounding. For the first time, Kurama went on, someone listened. And in listening, he reminded me that I was not always a weapon. Naruto finally spoke, his voice quiet. My father didn't seal him inside me to curse me, he said. He did it because Kurama was being controlled. Used. If he hadn't acted, Konoha would have been erased. And you? Sakura asked softly. What about you? Naruto met her eyes. He trusted that I could choose a different ending. Kurama gave a low huff that might have been a laugh. And infuriatingly, he did. The fox's form began to fade, chakra receding like embers settling after a fire. Before vanishing completely, Kurama looked at Sakura one last time. Protect him, he said simply. Not because he needs it, but because he deserves it. The chakra dissolved. Silence filled the apartment. Sakura's hands were shaking. Naruto moved instantly, kneeling in front of her, taking her hands into his. Sakura-chan, I know this is a lot. If you're scared. She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around him tightly, burying her face against his shoulder. I'm not scared of you, she said fiercely. I'm scared of how much you've carried alone. Naruto's breath hitched. She pulled back just enough to look at him, eyes blazing with resolve. Your father trusted you. Kurama trusts you. And I trust you. A stunned laugh escaped Naruto before he could stop it. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like an anchor in a suddenly shifting world. There's more, he admitted quietly. Things I haven't shown you yet. About what happened after I left Konoha. About why the council really agreed so fast. Sakura stiffened slightly. Naruto, what aren't you telling me? He opened his mouth to answer. And froze. A familiar chakra signature flared at the edge of his senses. Sharp, controlled, watching. Naruto's eyes narrowed as he turned toward the window. We're not alone, he said. Outside, somewhere in the city of sand, a presence that should not have been there had just found him. And whatever truth Naruto had been about to reveal, it was about to be dragged into the open. He asked me for my side of the story. The voice was calm now, ancient, weighted with memory rather than rage. Humans decided long ago that I was nothing more than a disaster given form, Kurama continued. A walking calamity. But stories repeated often enough stop caring about truth. Sakura swallowed. Then, you didn't just appear that night? Kurama's lips curled faintly. No, beasts like me do not appear. We are summoned. By who? She asked. Naruto felt her grip tighten as Kurama answered. By Madara Uchiha. Sakura stiffened. But Madara is supposed to be dead. Kurama's tail swayed slowly. Death is negotiable for certain men. Naruto stepped in then, his voice steady but grim. Sakura-chan, my father kept records, sealed ones. The truth of what happened before Konoha became what it is now. He tapped the legacy scroll lightly. When the village was founded, the Senju and Uchiha stood together. But Madara believed leadership was stolen from him. He saw compromise as betrayal. And betrayal, as justification. He wanted revenge, Sakura whispered. He wanted erasure, Naruto corrected. Kurama nodded. But he lacked one thing, control. He could summon me, but not command me. So he found allies among humans who already feared what they could not dominate. Sakura's breath hitched. The council, one man in particular, Kurama said, eyes narrowing. Danzo Shimura. The name hit like ice. Naruto continued. Danzo feared the Uchiha and resented the Hokage's trust in them. When Madara offered a solution, one that removed both the Uchiha and destabilized Konoha, Danzo agreed. But why wait? Sakura asked. Why 18 years? Kurama answered quietly. Because they needed the perfect trigger. Naruto closed his eyes briefly. Itachi. Silence fell. They manipulated him, Naruto said. Forced him into an impossible choice. Clan, or village. And during the chaos, Kurama finished. I was unleashed. Provoked. Directed. Blamed. Sakura's hands trembled. And your father? Naruto's voice softened. Minato Namikaze chose the only option left. He sealed Kurama into me, not as punishment, but because he believed I could survive it. And because he refused to sacrifice another child. Tears burned Sakura's eyes. So when Naruto asked me why I hated humans, Kurama said, something shifted. He did what no one ever had. He listened. Sakura looked at Naruto in disbelief. You freed him, because you understood him. Naruto nodded. Because I knew what it was like to be judged before anyone asked who you really were. But then, why is he still with you? She asked. Kurama smiled, soft, almost fond. Because I cannot exist alone anymore. And because this stubborn kid refused to abandon me. Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. We merged. Partners. I lead, he supports. No chains. And the power? Sakura asked carefully. All of it, Naruto answered. Without pain. Without losing myself. Kurama added dryly, and without harming his mate. Sakura blinked. Mate? Naruto coughed. Yeah. Kurama chuckled. You are bonded, Sakura Haruno. My chakra recognizes you as his chosen. Her face flushed, but her fear was gone. Then Naruto stood, seriousness returning. Sakura-chan, there's one more thing. I didn't just train in Suna. He picked up the small box from the table. I trained where Kurama comes from. Where summons are born. Sakura's heart raced. You mean? Yes, Kurama said as his form dissolved back into red light. The realm beyond contracts and scrolls. Naruto held out his hand. I need you to trust me. She didn't hesitate. Red chakras surged, not violent, but controlled, wrapping around them like a living current. The kitchen blurred, the air bending as reality folded inward. Sakura clutched Naruto's hand as the world vanished. And somewhere far beyond human borders, something ancient opened its eyes. Sakura's eyes narrowed dangerously. A group of girls? She repeated slowly. Trying to mate with you? Naruto laughed nervously, rubbing the back of his head. I mean, trying is a strong word. It was more like enthusiastic admiration. Sakura said flatly. Sayuri watched the exchange with thinly veiled amusement, clearly enjoying every second. Midori, on the other hand, puffed out her cheeks again and crossed her arms. They kept giving him sweets and asking him to smile at them, the little fox girl declared. I told them Naruto Nichin was already taken. Sakura blinked. You did? Midori nodded firmly. Yes, I said he already loved someone with pink hair. Naruto froze. You told them that? Midori tilted her head. Was that wrong? Sakura's expression softened instantly. She knelt again and gently patted Midori's head. No, sweetheart. That was very kind of you. Naruto let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Sayuri chuckled. The village adores him, she explained. He helped us during a territorial dispute with the wolf spirits months ago. Ever since then, people have taken quite a liking to him. Naruto waved it off. I just did what anyone should do. That's exactly why they like you, Sayuri replied warmly. Sakura stood, slipping her hand naturally into Naruto's. She felt it then, not jealousy, not fear, but pride. Pride that this was the man she loved. Someone respected not for power alone, but for heart. So, Sakura said, deliberately sweet, should I be worried about these admirers? Naruto shook his head instantly. No, never. I turned them all down. Politely. Repeatedly. After Kyoko scared a few of them, Kurama's voice added lazily from within Naruto. Kyuubi, Naruto muttered. Sakura arched a brow. Kyoko? Naruto smiled. You're about to meet her. They continued deeper into the village, the buildings slowly giving way to more open spaces and natural stone structures. The air felt alive. Chakra here wasn't forced or molded, it flowed freely, like breath. At the edge of a quiet clearing stood a home unlike any Sakura had ever seen. It was built partly from stone, partly from living wood, with glowing symbols etched into its surface that pulsed faintly. Naruto stopped. She's here, he said softly. The door slid open before he could knock. A woman stepped out, tall, poised, with long crimson hair and eyes that shimmered like molten gold. Fox ears rested atop her head, and behind her flowed 9 elegant tails, each moving with subtle intelligence. Sakura felt it instantly. Power. Not overwhelming, but ancient. So, the woman said with a knowing smile, eyes settling on Sakura, this is her. Naruto relaxed visibly. Kyoko, this is Sakura. Kyoko studied her carefully, not critically, but deeply, then smiled wider. Good, she said simply. Sakura blinked. Good? Kyoko stepped closer, placing a hand over Sakura's heart. The contact was warm, reassuring. You chose him for who he is, Kyoko said. Not for his strength, not for his destiny. That is rare. Sakura swallowed. He chose me too. Kyoko laughed softly. Yes, he did. Naruto shifted awkwardly. This is getting intense. Kyoko smirked. You'll survive, Kit. She turned serious again. Naruto Uzumaki, Sakura Haruno. By stepping into this realm together, you have crossed a boundary few humans ever do. Sakura tightened her grip on Naruto's hand. What boundary? She asked. Kyoko's gaze sharpened, tails lifting slightly. The boundary between observer and participant. The ground beneath them pulsed faintly. From this moment on, Kyoko continued, the spirit world will remember your names. Naruto's eyes narrowed. That sounds ominous. Kyoko smiled, unbothered. It should. The wind shifted, and somewhere far beyond the fox village, something old, patient, and watching, took note of the 2 new presences that had stepped onto the board. Silence followed Sakura's declaration. Not awkward silence, heavy silence. The kind that settled into the walls and demanded to be acknowledged. Kyoko's violet eyes softened first. Well, she said at last, tail swaying lazily behind her, that answers every question I had. She stepped closer, no longer teasing, no longer playful. When she stopped in front of Sakura, the pressure in the room shifted, subtle, ancient, evaluating. You speak with certainty, Kyoko observed. Not jealousy. Not fear. Certainty. Sakura lifted her chin. Because I've already lost him once. I won't make that mistake again. Naruto's breath caught. Kyoko turned to him slowly. You didn't exaggerate, Naru-chan. Naruto scratched his cheek, embarrassed. I never do. A soft laugh escaped Kyoko. You do. Just not about the things that matter. She placed one hand lightly over Sakura's heart. There was no pain, only warmth, like standing in sunlight after a long winter. This bond is real, Kyoko said calmly. Not forced. Not claimed through dominance. Chosen. Sakura felt something answer back inside her. Naruto's chakra, steady and familiar, resonating with her own. Kyoko withdrew her hand and smiled. You are acknowledged. Naruto blinked. That's good, right? It's rare, Kyoko replied. And dangerous. Sakura frowned. Dangerous how? Kyoko turned toward the open courtyard, gazing at the purple sky beyond. Because once a bond like this is recognized in the spirit realm, it doesn't remain unnoticed. Naruto stiffened. Kyoko. She raised a hand. I'm not saying this to frighten you. I'm saying it because you deserve truth. Her expression grew serious. The Wolf Clan has not forgotten you, she continued. Nor have others who watched the balance shift when Kurama chose partnership instead of dominance. Sakura's grip tightened on Naruto's hand. So coming here, painted a target? Kyoko finished gently. Yes, but one that already existed. Naruto exhaled slowly. Figures. Kyoko looked back at Sakura. Tell me, human, when danger comes, will you stand beside him even knowing this world can break you far more easily than your own? Sakura didn't hesitate. I already am standing beside him, she said. If that breaks me, so be it. For a long moment, Kyoko studied her. Then she laughed, bright, genuine, approving. Oh, I like you. Naruto nearly sagged in relief. Kyoko clapped her hands once. Good. Then we'll proceed properly. Proceed with what? Sakura asked warily. Kyoko's smile turned sharp, not cruel, but excited. With preparation. Naruto groaned. I knew it. You two didn't come all this way just to sightsee, Kyoko said. If you're going to exist between worlds, you need to understand what that means. She gestured toward the courtyard. Symbols etched into the stone floor began to glow faintly. Tonight, Kyoko continued, you will learn what it truly means to be bound. Not as master and vessel, not as protector and protected. Her gaze flicked knowingly between them. But as equals. The air shifted. Far beyond the Fox village, something ancient stirred. Not curious this time, but alert. And Sakura Haruno realized that stepping into Naruto's world hadn't just changed her future. It had awakened forces that would now test it. Good, Kyoko said at last, her tone measured and approving. That is exactly how it should be. So, what brings you here? Naruto's grin widened. Not what, he corrected lightly. Who? He closed his eyes. Crimson chakra unfurled from him like a living flame, gathering in the open space before Kyoko. Sakura watched, breath held, as the energy condensed, shaping itself not into a beast, but into a man. When the light settled, she found herself staring at a striking figure. Tall, composed, with fox ears cresting dark auburn hair and 9 powerful tails moving with quiet authority behind him. His eyes, deep red and ancient, were gentle now, not wild. Kyoko's breath caught. Kerr, she began. She never finished the word. The man moved first, closing the distance in a heartbeat, lifting Kyoko into his arms as though the centuries between them had never existed. She laughed once in surprise before pulling him close, their reunion wordless but overwhelming. Naruto coughed pointedly. Maybe not right in the doorway? Sakura laughed despite herself, turning away politely as the reunited pair disappeared down the hall, their voices fading into softer tones that spoke of relief, affection, and a bond reforged. Well, Naruto said, rubbing the back of his head, that went about how I expected. Sakura smiled, warmth spreading in her chest. They love each other. Naruto nodded. Fox's bond for life. Even when Kurama was gone, Kyoko never chose another path. She ruled, she waited, and she believed. Sakura absorbed that quietly. That kind of devotion is rare. It is, Naruto agreed. And powerful. They stepped aside into the courtyard, giving the pair their privacy. The purple sky glimmered above, the spirit realm calm once more. Sakura reached for Naruto's hand, lacing her fingers through his. Thank you, for trusting me enough to bring me here. He squeezed back. There's no one else I'd bring. From within the house, laughter rose briefly, light, relieved, unmistakably joyful, before settling into a quiet peace. Sakura leaned into Naruto's shoulder, understanding at last that this place wasn't about demons or spirits or power. It was about bonds that endured. And as the night deepened, the spirit realm bore silent witness to two unions. One rekindled, one newly forged. Both strong enough to ripple across worlds. The fox girls stared at Sakura like she just upended the table without touching it. Naruto, for his part, looked like a man awaiting execution. Sakura-chan. I can explain, he started weakly. She didn't even look at him. Instead, Sakura smiled, sweet, composed, and far more dangerous than anger. She pulled out the chair beside Naruto and sat gracefully, crossing one leg over the other while resting her chin lightly on her hand. Please, she said warmly, eyes flicking to the four fox girls. Don't let us stop you. You all seem very close. The redhead recovered first, narrowing her eyes. Mate? She scoffed. Naruto doesn't have a mate. Naruto opened his mouth. Sakura placed a single finger over his lips. He froze. Oh? Sakura tilted her head innocently. That's strange, because last night, this man held me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. Naruto's face went nuclear red. The blonde fox girl bristled. You're lying. Sakura finally turned her full attention to them. Her chakra didn't flare violently, but it pressed, controlled and unmistakable. The table creaked softly. I don't lie, Sakura said calmly. Especially not about what's mine. The brunette stiffened. And just so we're clear, Sakura continued, still smiling, I don't mind admiration. Naruto inspires it. That's natural. She leaned closer to Naruto, one hand resting possessively on his arm. But touching him without permission? Her smile sharpened. That's where admiration turns into disrespect. Silence dropped like a blade. Naruto swallowed. Sakura-chan. She kissed his cheek, soft, deliberate, then looked back at the fox girls. He's chosen, she said simply. And I'm chosen in return. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the redhead clicked her tongue and stood. TCH. If that's how it is. The others followed suit, clearly irritated, but not foolish enough to argue further. As they walked away, one of the brunettes glanced back. You're lucky, she muttered to Sakura. He's not easy to forget. Sakura met her gaze evenly. I know. When they were finally gone, Naruto let out a breath so long it bordered on dramatic collapse. Wow. Sakura turned to him slowly. Naruto flinched. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my god, she said, covering her mouth. Your face was priceless. You weren't mad? He asked, stunned. Oh, I was, she replied cheerfully. But screaming and punching would have been boring. She picked up her chopsticks and slid his ramen toward him. Besides, I trust you. I just needed to remind them. Naruto stared at her like she'd just revealed a secret jutsu. You're terrifying, he said in awe. She smirked. You love it. He did. As they ate, Naruto leaned closer, voice low. For the record, I've never wanted anyone else. Sakura's expression softened instantly. She nudged his knee under the table. I know, she said quietly. And just so you know. She leaned in, whispering near his ear, making him shiver. If anyone ever tries that again, I won't be nearly as polite. Naruto grinned. Noted. Outside the cafe, unseen by either of them, a pair of sharp eyes watched from across the street. Ancient, calculating, interested. The spirit realm was paying attention now. And Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno had just made themselves impossible to ignore. Naruto sat there, stunned. He honestly expected the world to end. This wasn't the Sakura he remembered, the one who would have shouted first and punched second. This Sakura was calm, controlled, and infinitely more terrifying. I'm sorry, the red-haired fox girl said stiffly, forcing a smile. There isn't any room left. Sakura's lips curved. That's all right. Before Naruto could process what was happening, she shifted smoothly and sat down on his lap. He jerked in surprise, instinctively wrapping an arm around her waist to keep her steady. You don't mind, do you? She asked sweetly, fingers brushing his cheek. And not at all, Naruto managed, heat rushing to his face. She leaned back against his chest, utterly at ease. Naruto, on the other hand, was very aware of every heartbeat, every breath, every inch of space between them, or lack thereof. The fox girls stared. Sakura lifted her head, all warmth gone from her eyes. Listen carefully, she said, voice low and firm. Naruto is not available, not curious, not undecided. Her hand rested possessively over his arm. He chose me, and I chose him. Naruto swallowed hard, unable to look away from her. I don't care if you're fox or human, Sakura continued evenly. Admiration is fine. Crossing boundaries is not. The silence was thick. So here's how this ends, she finished calmly. You leave, we eat, and everyone keeps their dignity. One by one, the fox girls stood, irritation written plainly on their faces, but none of them argued. They filed out without another word. Only when they were gone did Naruto finally breathe. Sakura slid off his lap and took the empty seat beside him, fingers lacing with his naturally. The waitress returned with their food, pausing just long enough to give Sakura an approving nod before leaving again. Naruto leaned closer, voice low. That was intense. She smiled at him, soft now, affectionate. You okay? Yeah, he admitted. Just surprise. I didn't want to hurt anyone, she said. I just wanted to be clear. Naruto squeezed her hand. You were. They ate in companionable silence for a while, the tension easing into something warmer, more comfortable. Finally, Naruto spoke again, quieter this time. You know, you never had to prove anything. I know, Sakura replied gently. But sometimes it's good to say things out loud. She met his gaze, unwavering. You're my partner, my choice. Naruto smiled, the kind of smile that came from deep in his chest. And you're mine. She leaned in and kissed him, unhurried, certain, full of promise. Outside, the spirit realm hummed softly, as if acknowledging words that carried more weight than vows. Because some bonds didn't need ceremonies. They just needed to be claimed, clearly, openly, and without fear. Kyoko's voice softened as she finished her story, the crackle of the pan returning as she turned back to the stove. I found him later that day, she said. He tried to apologize for leaving without saying goodbye. I told him he didn't owe me anything, but I thanked him anyway. We talked, really talked, about duty, about loneliness, about the weight of being strong when everyone expects it of you. Sakura listened, unmoving, and somewhere between those words, Kyoko continued, smiling faintly, I realized that love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it shows up quietly, wraps you in something warm, and stays. Sakura felt something settle in her chest at that. That sounds a lot like Naruto, she murmured. Kyoko glanced over her shoulder. Exactly. Footsteps sounded above them, heavy, unhurried. Naruto's voice followed shortly after, still thick with sleep. Morning. Sakura turned, smiling immediately. Naruto appeared at the bottom of the stairs, hair a mess, shirt half-buttoned, looking entirely too pleased with the world. Kyoko chuckled. I'll leave you two to eat. Try not to break anything today. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. No promises. Kyoko rolled her eyes fondly and slipped out, tail swaying as she disappeared down the hall. Sakura poured tea while Naruto slid into a chair, stretching. You look happy, she said. I am, he replied simply. She handed him a cup, their fingers brushing. He didn't pull away. They ate in companionable silence for a few moments before Sakura spoke again, quieter now. Kyoko told me how you saved her. Naruto blinked. She did? She told me what kind of man you were before I ever truly saw it. He looked down at his cup. I just did what felt right. That's what scares me, Sakura said softly. How easy it is for you to give yourself to others. Even when it costs you. Naruto looked up then, meeting her eyes fully. It doesn't cost me anymore. Not when you're here. She reached across the table, taking his hand. Then don't carry it alone. Whatever comes next, duty, danger, expectations, we face it together. He smiled, wide and unguarded. Together. Outside, the spirit realm stirred, subtle, attentive, like it recognized the quiet strength of the promise just made. And far above the village, unseen forces shifted, watching. Because bonds like theirs did not go unnoticed. And the world, both of them, was beginning to respond. Silence settled over the room after Kyoko's words, thick and heavy with consequence. Naruto didn't speak. Kyuubi didn't move. All eyes rested on Sakura. She inhaled slowly, steadying herself, not as a shinobi preparing for battle, but as a woman standing at the edge of a life-altering decision. I'm not doing this because I feel guilty, Sakura said quietly, breaking the silence. And I'm not doing it to be noble. She looked directly at Kyoko. I'm doing it because I understand what it's like to love someone so deeply that the thought of being separated from them hurts more than any wound. Because I've lived half my life blind to the love standing right in front of me. And I won't let that happen to someone else if I can stop it. Kyoko's breath trembled. Sakura? Sakura smiled softly. You saved Naruto in ways you probably don't even realize. You helped him understand Kyuubi. You gave him a home when he didn't know who he was anymore. If trusting you with a part of myself lets you be whole again, then it's worth it. Naruto finally stepped forward, voice low but steady. She's right, and she's stronger than you think. Sakura glanced back at him, eyes shining. So are you. Kyuubi regarded Sakura for a long moment, ancient eyes weighing her resolve, her chakra, her heart. Then he inclined his head in solemn respect. You carry courage without arrogance, he said, and compassion without weakness. If this bond is to be attempted, there is no better soul to share it with. Kyoko wiped her tears, stepping forward until she stood directly in front of Sakura. Slowly, reverently, she placed both hands over Sakura's. Then listen to me carefully, Kyoko said. If at any point you feel fear, true fear, not doubt, you say the word and we stop. Immediately. Sakura nodded. Agreed. This will not make you less yourself, Kyoko continued. But it will change you. You will feel more, hear more, carry echoes of another world within you. I already do, Sakura replied gently. His name is Naruto. Naruto swallowed hard and pulled her into his arms. I don't deserve you, he murmured. She rested her forehead against his. Good. Then spend the rest of your life proving it. Kyuubi cleared his throat pointedly. If we're doing this, it must be done properly. He turned toward the far end of the room. The ritual circle must be prepared. This cannot be rushed. Kyoko straightened, resolve replacing hesitation. Then let's do it before I lose my nerve. The room shifted as ancient seals along the floor began to glow, soft, layered symbols older than shinobi history itself. The spirit realm responded, not violently, but attentively, as if holding its breath. Naruto tightened his grip on Sakura's hand. No matter what happens, he said firmly, I'm here. I won't let go. She squeezed back. I know. As the circle completed itself and chakra stirred like a rising tide, Sakura Haruno stood not as a medic nin, not as a kunoichi of Konoha, but as a bridge between worlds. And somewhere deep within the spirit realm, fate shifted, acknowledging a choice that would ripple far beyond this moment. Naruto froze the moment Sakura stepped back into the room. He didn't know why, only that something about her presence had shifted. She felt warmer, fuller, closer somehow. It worked, Sakura said softly. Kyoko is safe, she's with you now. Relief hit him like a wave. He pulled her into his arms without thinking, holding her tightly, as if afraid she might vanish if he didn't. I was terrified, he admitted into her hair. I didn't know what I'd do if. She silenced him with a kiss. Not desperate, not rushed, just certain. When they finally parted, Naruto studied her face, then her posture, then the subtle changes he couldn't quite place. You're different, he murmured. Sakura smiled, that familiar mix of confidence and mischief shining in her eyes. Not different, she corrected gently. Just, more myself. Inside her mind, Kyoko's presence stirred, calm, steady, watchful. He feels it, the vixen noted with quiet amusement. He always does, Sakura replied. Naruto brushed his thumb along her cheek, grounding himself in the reality of her. Does it hurt? No, she answered honestly. It feels like, something that was missing finally found its place. He rested his forehead against hers. Then I'm glad. Because whatever you've become, it's still you. She smiled at that, soft, genuine. Outside the room, the air shifted. Power moved, not violently, not maliciously, but aware. Kyoko emerged moments later, her expression serene in a way Sakura had never seen before. Kyuubi stood beside her, one arm wrapped around her waist, eyes sharp and ancient, yet peaceful. It's done, Kyoko said. The bond is stable. Naruto exhaled, tension finally draining from his shoulders. And the cost? He asked quietly. Kyoko met Sakura's gaze. Change, responsibility, and attention. Sakura straightened. I can handle that. Kyuubi studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. You've altered the balance of more than just this realm. Naruto's jaw tightened. Meaning? Meaning, Kyuubi said calmly, others will notice. The room fell silent. Sakura took Naruto's hand, squeezing it firmly. Then let them. Because whatever was coming next, whatever forces had begun to stir, they would face it together. Sakura clung to Naruto as the storm between them finally eased, her breath slowly finding rhythm again as the world steadied. For a long while, neither of them spoke. They lay tangled together, hearts still racing, bodies warm, the quiet broken only by the sound of shared breathing. Naruto's hand traced slow, absent circles along her back, not possessive, not demanding, just there. Grounding. Safe. Hey, he murmured at last, pressing his forehead to hers. You okay? Sakura smiled lazily, eyes half-lidded. More than okay. He laughed softly, relief washing through him. Good, because if that ritual messed you up, I was fully prepared to tear apart two realms looking for answers. She reached up, brushing his cheek. You worried too much. I don't worry, he corrected. I care. That made her chest ache in the best way. They stayed like that for a while longer before reality gently pulled them back. Eventually, they rose together, dressing slowly, comfortably, as though there was no longer any rush between them. Kyoko met them shortly after, her presence different now, lighter. Whole. It's done, she said quietly. The council has received my abdication. The seals are already shifting. Naruto nodded. Then we should go before questions turn into complications. Sakura glanced around the room once more, committing the place to memory. I didn't think I'd get attached, she admitted. But I did. Kyoko smiled knowingly. That means you belonged here, even if only for a while. Naruto took Sakura's hand, fingers interlacing naturally. Ready to go home? She squeezed back. As long as you're with me. His grin softened. Always. Before they left, Kyoko embraced Sakura, long, sincere, grateful. You've given me more than you know, the vixen whispered. And I will protect what you love as fiercely as you do. Sakura nodded. I'd trust you. That mattered. With a final exchange of glances, and promises unspoken but understood, Naruto summoned the familiar crimson chakra. It wrapped around them, warm and steady, not violent or wild. Just certain. As the spirit realm faded away, Naruto's voice reached Sakura's ear. No matter what the council says, no matter where we end up. She smiled, finishing the thought. We face it together. The light swallowed them whole. And somewhere beyond both realms, something ancient took notice. Naruto's world narrowed to Sakura's eyes. The bustle of the marketplace faded, the sounds outside the fitting room dissolving into nothing more than a distant hum. For a moment, it was just the two of them, breathing in sync, foreheads touching, chakra calm and warm between them. They didn't rush. They didn't need to. When Sakura finally rested her head against his shoulder, Naruto wrapped his arms around her and held her there, grounding them both. Hey, he murmured softly. We should probably stop before we get banned from the store. Sakura laughed quietly, warmth blooming in her chest. You're the worst kind of distraction. Yeah, he agreed with a grin. But I'm your distraction. Reluctantly, they straightened themselves, sharing one last soft kiss before Naruto stepped back, hands lingering just long enough to promise more later. Sakura finished changing, smoothing her clothes with flushed cheeks and a smile that refused to fade. When they stepped out together, the seamstress was just finishing the final stitches on Naruto's coat. She held it up proudly. There, she said, 9 tails. Balanced. Strong. Naruto slipped it on, feeling the weight settle comfortably over his shoulders. The embroidered fox caught the light, elegant, deliberate, unmistakable. Sakura paused when she saw him. For a heartbeat, she simply stared. You look incredible, she said honestly. Naruto scratched his cheek, embarrassed. Yeah? She nodded, like someone who finally looks the way he feels. The seamstress smiled knowingly. Careful, sweetheart. People are going to remember you. Naruto exchanged a glance with Sakura, something unspoken passing between them. Let them, Sakura said quietly. They left the shop hand in hand, the sun dipping low over Suna's streets. Tomorrow, they would travel to Konoha, back into politics, expectations, and eyes that would judge far too quickly. But tonight, they were just Naruto and Sakura. Partners, mates, equal. And somewhere far beyond the desert winds, fate tightened its grip, because when they stepped into the Chunin exams, they wouldn't just be participants. They would be noticed. Outside the shop, the warm Suna breeze greeted them like a quiet blessing. Naruto adjusted the bags on his shoulders while Sakura slipped her hand into his, their fingers fitting together as naturally as breathing. For a moment, neither of them spoke, both still carrying the glow of the moment they'd shared inside. You okay? Naruto asked softly. Sakura nodded, smiling. More than okay. They walked in comfortable silence through the marketplace, lanterns beginning to glow as the sun dipped lower. Merchants were closing for the evening, voices blending into a gentle hum that felt almost intimate. Naruto glanced down at her. So, wedding kimonos, huh? Her cheeks flushed instantly. Too soon? He stopped walking. Sakura turned back, surprised, only to find him looking at her with an expression so open and earnest that her breath caught. No, he said simply. Not too soon. Just unexpected. She studied his face, searching for doubt, but found none. I didn't mean to rush you, she said quietly. When Ayumi asked, it felt right. Like saying it out loud made it real. Naruto set the bags down and took both her hands in his. Sakura-chan, he said, voice steady, everything about us already feels real to me. Her eyes softened. I don't know where we'll end up, he continued. Konoha might not welcome me. The council might fight us. Things could get messy. She squeezed his hands. Then we face it together. A slow grin spread across his face. Yeah, together. He pulled her into a gentle embrace right there in the street, resting his forehead against hers. No urgency. No heat. Just certainty. After a moment, Sakura laughed quietly. You know, when I pictured my future, I never imagined it would involve fox spirits, spirit realms, or reforming village politics. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, same. I thought it'd be ramen, missions, and maybe a dog. She tilted her head. You'd still want a dog? Only if it doesn't get jealous of Kyuubi. From somewhere deep within him, a familiar presence stirred. I heard that, Kyuubi remarked dryly. Naruto snorted. See? Already jealous. Sakura smiled, resting her head against his chest. The world felt wide open before them, uncertain, dangerous, but full of promise. Tomorrow, she murmured, we go back to Konoha. Naruto nodded, one arm tightening protectively around her. And whatever happens after that, I won't let go. She looked up at him, eyes shining. Good, because I'm not letting you either. Hand in hand, they continued down the lantern-lit street, toward tomorrow, toward Konoha, toward a future neither of them had planned, but both had chosen.
That's all for now. If you enjoy them, please like, share, and do comment.